Welcome, Canby, to the Canby Planning Commission meeting dated Monday, February 26th. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Consent items, there are none. Next up is citizen input on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on non-agenda items. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. Staff and Planning Commission will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens input before the meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. Do we have any citizen input on non-agenda items? We do not. Moving into old business, final findings for DR 23-06, PLA 23-05. I'm going to probably butcher this name, but Tevioli Commons, is that correct? Tivoli Commons, I was close. I'm going to turn this over to Ryan Potter to have a few words about our final findings.
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So this is a relatively minor cleanup item. This was a project that came to Planning Commission for an original decision. Then it came back with final findings prepared by staff. However, at the second reading, there was some additional language added to a condition. And so there was a couple issues with that. I'm just going to speak extremely briefly on that, and then we have our consulting city attorney to elaborate if he'd like. The first issue is this was an idea that it was about a mid-block crossing adjacent to the project site. For a couple reasons that our public works staff got back to us on. It's an improvement that wouldn't be consistent with our public works standards because there's already other crossings on the ends of the blocks, and then some other reasons related to signage. So public works actually wasn't in support of the amended language added to the condition. The other part was it was sort of Dawn's understanding that this was cleaning up a condition, and then in retrospect, it was more of a brand new piece added to the condition. And so generally with second readings, it's okay if we're clarifying language, but we really don't want to add anything new because the hearing's been closed and the project applicant is not present to give their input. And our city attorney can elaborate on that if you'd like. David, I don't know if you had additional comments.
Yeah, sure, Ryan. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep. Yes.
Great. So I think Ryan, really summarized it well. The issue from my perspective, the legal concern is just a matter of having a condition that's added after you've essentially deliberated, you've directed staff to prepare findings, those come back, and at that point, it's strongly encouraged not to have essentially a new condition at that point. But to the extent, sort of unique circumstances are present where the commission may want to do that, the proper approach would be to say we need to reopen the matter, reopen the hearing. So not only the applicant, but also members of the public would have a chance to speak to that. And these are the kind of things that apply across the board, and it's not anything specific to this condition. In this case, as Ryan said, Public Works feels it's probably not even consistent with the city's code and how you would approach this issue. But nevertheless, in this particular instance, it's probably, not the biggest deal in the world. It's just more a matter of having a consistent sort of approach to that. And we just didn't want to have a procedural error that kind of followed the final decision if the condition were included. So that's the basis for seeking to talk to you about it tonight, and staff's proposal with my blessing and I guess I would say advice is to strike that condition from the final order.
Thank you, David. So as you saw in your packet, there's the final findings as they were originally prepared. There's the original conditions, and then condition number 34, the original portion of it stands. It's just that one last little piece that was added at the end that's been stricken, and we've shown that in strikeout. And there's just notation in a footnote that explains what was done there. And so the idea was tonight that the Planning Commission would not need to re-vote on this, that the vote stands, your approval stands, and the final findings are fine. It's just that one little piece that's been stricken. But we didn't, because this body voted on it, we didn't want to make that change and not talk to you about it, because we just wanted to daylight that was what was happening with that condition.
So at this point, is there or is there not any need to do a verbal re-vote? Since it sounds like it's moot at this point.
Yeah, and David, feel free to correct me. It was Dawn and I's understanding that another vote was not necessary, that the vote last time was fine as is.
That's correct. I don't think the Planning Commission needs to do anything more affirmatively. As Ryan said, we just really wanted to do this, with your knowledge and having some discussion about it. And that will just simply not be a part of the order that the chair will ultimately sign.
Thank you. Any commissioners on the panel have anything to add or any questions?
No, I was the one who brought it up, and I misunderstood what was possible from Public Works, so it's really on me. So sorry for the confusion, and thank you for enlightening us about the overall process moving forward.
And I'll add that staff obviously understands your intention, and the intention was good. And once we get into the director's comments at the end of this meeting, I'll elaborate a little bit on future training.
Okay. Great. If there are no other comments or questions, we move out of old business. Going once, going twice. Okay. New business, none. There are no public hearings as well. The Planning Commission work session that was planned for this evening has been rescheduled for Monday, March 11th. So from there, we can move into items of interest or reporting from planning staff. The next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for March 11th, 2024, 6 p.m. And I will turn it back over to Ryan for the Planning Director's update.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Ellison. So Chair Ellison is correct. Our next meeting is March 11th. The work session that was planned for tonight will happen on that date. And Dawn and David will go into hearing procedures and processes. And that's not about the item that we just talked about. That this is a normal periodic training that we do with all of our hearing bodies. It's always good to get a refresher both for staff and for our hearing bodies. So they'll do that on the 11th. And then following that, Dawn has a couple more work sessions related to housing and the comp plan coming up for that date and the 25th or 26th, whatever the next March one is. And then starting in April, we'll have some more substantive, probably a couple of public hearings for development projects. And then fencing is coming back. I know everyone's ready to hear that again. So that will probably be the first hearing in April with some proposed code language for you to contemplate. And then the last thing I'll mention is the Planning Commission got an email from me today. It was a forward about a training tomorrow. That was just a courtesy. It's obviously really short notice, but it's a training that the City Council is going to do about executive sessions. And council and our city administrator had encouraged us to make sure that the Planning Commission and our other committees were just aware when trainings come up. And so that was just in case any of you wanted to attend that tomorrow. I think it's at 10. But council and our city administrator does plan to have more and more training opportunities in the future, and we will obviously forward those invitations if you all would like to join those.
Great, thank you. I know everybody's excited about April. That'll be a good time. Items of interest and guidance from the Planning Commission. Are there any items of interest?
I was just curious with the proposed code for fencing and other things in April, could we possibly talk about the definition of open, the definition of common space, and the alleys?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's doable. We can add that to the mix of things that we talk about.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Commissioner DeRoche?
I guess I would just offer one thing, and our past meetings where we've had some training on our processes have always been great, well received, and we've had multiple opportunities to meet with previous city council and also, other planning commission groups, and it's great. We've had lots of discussion about this in the past with this particular group is to what extent do we need the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law? We're not the city council. We are a citizen-led group. We're not elected. And so it's something to keep in the back of your mind to what extent, we all want well-run meetings and we all appreciate Robert's rules, and I do too. I've led a couple other commissions and boards in this town, and there have been some occasions where it can really take over a meeting. It's all about procedure. Wait, do I need to vote on adjourning if adjourn is on the agenda? Or do I need to vote? I mean, people get really hung up on it. And for citizen-led agendas, a lot of it's up to the commissioner, the head of the board. Except when it comes to the city council. So it's something to just keep in the back of your mind. We want to have well-run meetings, but we've seen a number of cases where the meetings go astray because we're trying to adhere to the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law and get all hung up on what do we need to vote on? What do we need a motion for? Do we need a motion to adjourn or not? And I think it's a good, just to put in the back of your minds, we all want well-run meetings. And you've heard me say numerous times, one of the things I want to dictate is everybody that shows up to the meeting with a PowerPoint needs to have numbered pages, right? You've heard me say this before. Can you please, how do we know, are we page 5 of an 80-page deck or page 10? And that's improved, but not a lot from the people coming in. The consultants and everything, or, if somebody wants to extend their time, if it's a consultant or internal or whoever, how do we address that? Is that informal? Or do we stop as a group and say, okay, then we need a motion to set aside the rules about how much time a consultant has and agree? And I don't know the answers to all that. I think there's a sweet spot in there somewhere between letter of the law and spirit of the law. But I don't want us going in thinking that everything is absolutely dictated black and white. There's something for us to discuss and think about us as a group and what makes a well-managed meeting with the right, things we have to vote on and have a record of and things like that. So that's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner DeRoche. I'm just going to take a stab at David might have something to add to that, potentially, maybe. Any thoughts, David, as a precursor to our work session?
Yeah, I really appreciate the comment. I think it's something that I can talk about with Dawn, and it's when it comes to hearing procedures and processes, my focus is almost exclusively on things that state law imposes on you and every other planning commission or anybody that's considering land use matters, particularly when they're applications that you have to make a decision on based on the city's code, et cetera, and not so much on Robert's rules or sort of more parliamentary how the meeting is run. In fact, I very much agree with the sentiment that as far as Robert's rules go and trying to make everything very, for sort of formalized and to the letter of what Robert's rules requires can really be counterproductive, especially for most of our clients that are, relatively, jurisdictions just like Canby. That's great for big, elaborate, legislative processes. And I'm sure your rules speak to, having Robert's rules being a guide for how you, deliberate. I'm hopeful. I haven't taken this look, and of course I will before our March 11 meeting. I'm hopeful that normally the way those are written is that it says just that. They're used as a guide, but they don't need to be, something that completely binds the commission in every single vote or every single action that it takes, just for the reasons that the Commissioner DeRoche mentioned, because it can often really kind of gum up the works when you're pretty much assured you know what you want to do, and state law doesn't require you to do anything in terms of Robert's rules. It's just more of a conventional thing that a lot of cities and counties use. So the things I want to focus on are the things that, basically are legally required. And I can maybe elaborate a little bit more we'll elaborate more on those, but also kind of weave in that issue of Robert's rules and how to not let it sort of take over, your deliberations.
Great, thank you very much for that. Any other commissioners have anything to add before we move to adjourn? Okay, seeing none. I think at this point then we are ready to adjourn, and I'm going to just say all in favor.
Aye.
Any opposers? Nay. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.